This is your lecture number 4. The title of this lecture is the Managerial Traits and Skills. In this particular lecture, we shall be learning that what traits and skills make managers effective, of course, in managing organizations and achieving their goals. As we have learned that the managers are the people who manage different resources of the organization to achieve different kinds of goals which are given to them. Be like, the manager is working at the department level or the overall organizational level. As we have learned that managers work at different levels, like say for example, some are line managers, some are tactical managers, some are like strategic managers. So whatever task, whatever manager you are given goal, and what kind of traits, qualities of yours and skills that you learn over time can improve your performance as a manager. And by improving your performance as a manager mean that you are able to achieve your goals effectively and efficiently. So in this particular lecture, we are going to learn about the traits of leadership that uh, have changed over the years. As we initially we were also talking about that how the management is changing in the modern world, specifically in the post-pandemic world. The things have changed altogether now. Like as we are having this online lecture, nobody could ever think like that there would be a way like of contacting or taking class in this way, in a remote way. Like it was not a kind of foreseeable thing, but now people are managing this, and somehow this management is improving over time. Similarly, the organizations are evolving over time. Their techniques are changing. The challenges in the world are changing. The world is changing altogether. So there are different kinds of qualities that you have to change in yourself if you really want to go with the world, and you really want to uh, perform and achieve your goals in the modern world. And you should also be understanding the different traits of leadership. What are the different qualities of leader? Because the manager should also be a leader. Leadership is a very important quality. We will be trying to learn, and we shall be trying to see that what exactly the leaders are and what is the difference between the leaders and managers. But we actually need leader managers. We need such managers who can lead. We need such managers who have got the leadership qualities, because the leaders are the people like who bring change. The leaders do not only perform the tasks, the leaders bring change. The leaders change the mindset, change, they achieve like they have a different and a very bigger kind of objectives, and they lead the whole organizations or nations or peoples or armies like and to achieve and to just bring change into the world or into their countries or something like that. So what traits are important for leadership? We'll be trying to learn into this. First of all, if you look at a leader is generally a very powerful, dynamic individual who has ability to command victorious armies. Like you would have seen different kind of, or you would have read different historical wars that basically have happened, and these wars have been won by definitely armies, but the major role actually has been performed by the leaders. And these leaders have commanded victorious armies, and these victorious armies have conquered very different parts of the world. There have been the conquerors who have uh, created their their states on a very very large scales, and they have been able to do it just because of their dynamism and because of their ability to actually win. They direct corporate empires from atop gleaming skyscrapers or shape the course of nations. Like, say, for example, you perhaps would have heard about Warren Buffett. The Warren Buffett is basically a guy who actually owns around 50 companies all over the world. And he never visits a company. What he does, he always write them and just direct them. He actually direct the corporate empire. He is the leader of that corporate empire who directs them from atop gleaming skyscrapers. Like, he sits somewhere else and just manages and lead the whole group of his companies. So this is what something is a quality of leader. The leaders are directly, like they have an ability to command armies, to direct corporate sectors, and shape the course of nations. Like, as you can see, like, before Muhammad Ali Jinnah, like, how the national leaders used to think, and how the people used to think before Allama Iqbal, before all these people, how these Muslims used to think, and how Muslims were basically taking or understanding the situations there. But when these all leaders come, they lead the nations, they shape the course of nations, they give the like, the ideas, they give the meanings to their lives, they give the meanings to the struggles, they give direction to the struggles. So the good managers are always those people who give direction to the struggles, who give meanings to the struggles that people have, and they generally, like, have got a very much influence on the people. They actually change everybody. Like, these leaders have got very great followings. Like, say for example, you have very great leaders in our own country, and, like, all over the world. They actually have got a very strong following, and they are respected very well. Like, say for example, Muhammad Ali Jinnah in Pakistan, Gandhi in India, Mao Zedong in China. They have inspired intense favor and dedication. And why have they been able to do that? How did certain leaders like Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, could build very great empires? They built huge empires which were led by them, and they basically have been able to lead them very effectively, and they have been able to create them at the first place and then lead them. And the questions are that why did some rather undistinguished people like Adolf Hitler, Claudius Caesar rise to positions of great power? Like, the Hitler is known into the history for a lot of reasons. And similarly, the Claudius Caesars, basically, they have just grown, and they have just become so giant over the time. And similarly, like, some why certain leaders, like, say for example, Winston Churchill in the US, Indira Gandhi again, suddenly deposed despite their apparent power and record of successful accomplishments. They have been discarded by the people, they have been killed by the people, and there have been so many instances, like, why that happened. Why do some leaders have loyal followers who are willing to sacrifice their lives, whereas other leaders are so despised that subordinates conspire to murder them? There are some leaders which are liked by their people, so much liked by their people. Like, say, for example, there is a great following of Bhutto family here in Sindh. And similarly, like, there are other lot of followings that people do all over the world, like, that basically is something. But some leaders are respected, some leaders are, like, are always respected in the hearts and in the minds of the people. But some of the leaders basically have been such that who for whom, like, people have conspired, like, the death or murder kind of the plannings, because they didn't like them, they wanted to get rid of those all leaders. What makes these leaders these kind of people? Like, what makes the leaders so popular, and what makes them its followers so loyal to him, and how these leaders have been able to create those empires? Okay, if you look at the definition of leadership, uh, if you think about the leadership is the ability of an individual to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute towards the effectiveness and success of the organization or the nation, rather. Like, we have been talking about the leaders basically we have had in Pakistan or in the world. uh, there are some kind of things basically that, of course, are not there for, like, at the optimum. But of course, all these people try, and, like, but the leader should be able to influence, motivate, and other people to contribute towards the effectiveness and success of the organizations or the success of the nation. But that is what basically how much influence a leader can create. If you remember the examples from the life of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't actually, like, ask a child to stop consuming sugar unless he did himself. He first of all, like, stopped consuming or eating sugar himself. Then he said to the child, just don't eat this kind of a sugar, or don't eat this. Like that is what actually the leaders do. The leaders influence. When in the war, like say for example, we have got examples when the companions of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to him and said, okay, we are very hungry and I have got like, two stones I'm tying around my stomach. So when Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed them the number of stones, they were more than the stones which these people were actually like, tying around their stomachs for because of the hunger. तो ये देखें, ये है लीडरशिप. जब हजरत मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की लाइफ को देखते हैं, उनके कंपेनियंस को देखते हैं, और उनके कंपेनियंस की लाइफ को देखते हैं, तो यू फाइंड लीडर्स दैट बेसिकली समवन लाइक हजरत मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम व्हेन यूज्ड टू ट्रैवल, लाइक अगर आधे रास्ते वो उनका गुलाम अगर उनकी जो है वो लेके चल रहा होता था कैमल को, तो आधे रास्ते वो उसका लेकर चल रहे होते थे. दिस इज द लीडरशिप. लीडर्स इन्फ्लुएंस. Leaders first of all take pain themselves. Leaders, they are like Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam led. He led the biggest movement in the history of human beings. Like that is what something. It is one of the kind of the movement that actually Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam led all over the world. The leaders basically influence. Leaders motivate. Like he didn't have got gold to give to his companions. He didn't have got so much powers to give to his companions. He had got his like ability to influence them, motivate them, and he was like a person who actually energized people to contribute towards something. Like you cannot imagine that what kind of a state Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born in. He had got enemies everywhere. Wherever he went, he found enemies, but he won friends out of those enemies. He won people like who are now basically who actually died just like for the very small drop of sweat of him. That is what something. वो जब हजूर पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को जो जहाँ पसीना गिरता था वहाँ सहाबी जो है वो खून गिराते थे. That is what something happened, and that didn't happen like by sitting in some big air conditioned rooms. And like say for example यहाँ पर अगर आप ये देखें कि इस वक्त like you have got like all these kind of long marches happening. What actually the leaders do, these actually the people, actually I don't call them leaders, these all political people, basically what they do, they sit in air conditioned containers and they ask other people to sit in under the sun. They drink like like mineral waters, and the people basically who actually are marching with them are not even able to get some tap water. They eat like all the very like very like very ordered to made food, but the people basically are just go hungry for days basically if they are marching with them. So these people cannot influence. These people are the bunch of the vested interest people. They actually have got their own interests. They actually are not the leaders who actually want to lead nations. They are the people who have got their own vested interests. Like say for example when Imran Khan was like holding this all kind of sit-in and the marches, basically he used to travel into the very big air conditioned container, and the people used to like walk on the road barefooted and like under the very scorching sun. So it is like you can't lead people in this way. You can't lead the nations in this way. You have to take pain. You have to like you have to be a leader who shows the leadership skills. You have to have an ability to influence people. You have to have ability to motivate people. You have to have ability to enable others to contribute towards the goals, the bigger goals, like the big goals above their own interests. Like say for example Hazrat Ali Raziallahu Ta'ala anhu, when a person like he was actually about to kill, he spit on his face, like he just left him alone because he didn't want to kill somebody for his own personal like vendetta or some personal kind of like enmity. He just left that person, and the person who was about to die just got away from his death just because he spitted on the face of Hazrat Ali Raziallahu Ta'ala anhu. And why Hazrat Ali didn't kill him at that point of time, although he had got all the chance to kill that person, he didn't kill him because he didn't want to kill somebody for his own ego. He didn't want to kill somebody for himself. Like say for example, at that point of time, if he would have like killed that person, he would have killed like just in the rage or in the anger of like the thing basically he did with him. So the leaders are very different kind of people. Leaders are not such basically like who work for their own interests. And here basically, so if you look at the corporate types leadership, if you just like uh, narrow down the idea of the leadership to the corporations. So you think about the leaders. The good leaders don't make plans. Good leaders are not there to solve problems. They are not even there to organize people. What do? They prepare their organizations, and if you talk on the national levels, they prepare their nations for change and help them cope as they struggle through it. They bring change. They bring change. That is what basically is something. The change of culture, the change of thinking, the change of ways of living. Like, see, for example, again, if I give you the example of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he brought the change in the life of the people. What kind of people, what kind of life people were leading before him, and how the people started leading the life after him. And he showed the people how to bring change in the world, the change which was seemed impossible at that point of time, because they were so strong, the people basically who were never willing to listen to the person, like Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And didn't want, they were so big enemies of him. And he brought the change into the ideas or the ways of the people living. The people who used to kill their daughters, they started taking care of them. The people who used to kill each other for very petty things, they started loving each other. So this is the change that the people bring, like the leaders bring those changes. We cannot have got anybody like Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever, but the thing is, we should learn from him. This is a leadership that basically he has had, and this leadership is important, that's what something. So I am not too sure if you have heard about Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie is a very much is a motivational kind of a writer. So if you read his books, you will be amazed to see his ability to understand human psychology about different kinds of behaviors, which basically we do. And he actually explains that what makes good leader. So what actually some of the qualities he mentions, that that they ease into criticism. Good leaders point out problem in their teams without being harsh and without causing resentment. They don't criticize people, and they don't so the good leaders are easy on criticisms. If anything goes wrong, they do not criticize again, and again, if you look at the life of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will find many examples in which some of the behaviors of his companions he didn't like, but he never humiliated them. He never just made them just a kind of just think some lower being. He taught them. He actually explained them. He actually tried to just build their characters with the examples of himself. First of all, he did everything himself, and then he asked other people to do. And that is what something happens, and they call out minor mistakes indirectly. So you do not mention the things, the problems in your team directly. You should be talking about the indirect things, you can always give examples, and you can always mention people that this kind of a problem can happen. And even if you are seeing that problem in those people, they recognize their own mistakes in front of their team. They are not shy. They are not actually always uh, ego-centered. They always recognize their own mistakes. They never show any kind of they don't uh, insist on whatever things they are doing it is correct. They always correct their ways whenever things go wrong. Dale Carnegie further defines that they know when to use suggestion instead of direct orders, and they also respect others' dignity. Dignity is the most important thing. The respect always returns when you give respect to others. The leaders should be respectful with their people. A person might be socially and culturally and economically might be lower than yours, lower than you, but you have to be like, your actions should be dignified, like, you should not hurt their dignity. So whether leaders are giving employees a demotion or letting them go, even if you are just firing them, fire them with grace, send them back home with grace. Don't disgrace them. Everybody has his own ego. Everybody has got its own self-interest, self-respect. I'm sorry. Everybody has got his own kind of like respect for himself or his life or his family or his body, like, and you should be very much careful about it. Like, that's what actually something is important. Now, there are some kind of leaderships that happen directly and some are indirectly. Like, say, for example, again, if I give you the example of Hazrat Muhammad, I can't find any example better than the life of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like, if again you think about the life of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he never mentioned or like, just like, he always influenced others indirectly. He never tried to influence or tried to affect or tried to direct or tried to say things directly. He always actually had got the indirect way. And these indirect ways means like the people got influenced by him, by his actions, not directly like, telling them what to do, but just showing them how to do these all things. So effective leaders directly influence immediate subordinates, but a leader can influence other people inside the organizations. So effective leadership is something that actually like, create influence on both of the people who are directly in contact with you and who are not in contact with you. Like, say, for example, the people basically you are giving orders to or the people you are interacting with are obviously like, the people are directly connected to you, but there is a big organization that actually is on the back of you, that is listening to you, that is watching you, that is like, looking at how do you do the behavior. Like, say, for example, me as a teacher, say, for example, if I come to the class at the right time, I might expect my students to come on the right time. But if, say, for example, I come late to the class, how come I can expect my students to come on time? And similarly, if you do things like, say, for example, correctly, like, the other people see you doing those all things. Like, say, for example, if you are not throwing garbage on the road, and you are actually taking the garbage and you are actually like, disposing of that garbage properly, and whoever sees you might influence by you. जिस तरह आप देखें ना, like, say, for example, if a person if your friend goes for namaz, whenever the namaz time of the namaz comes, it always influences you. Like, say, for example, if your friend tells the truth, they influence you. If they are doing something which actually is good, or you just basically learn from them, so they are not directly telling you to do these things, but that is what the indirect effect is coming. And so much indirect effects come into the society when people do things. So we should not stop doing good things, because these good things can actually always create a lot more influence and a lot more multiplying effects into the country or overall world, even at points. So a CEO, a chief executive officer, has many ways to influence people at lower levels in the organizations. How he does, how he talks, how punctual he himself is, how honest he himself is. Like, say, for example, अब भी आजकल क्या होता है कि parents जो हैं वो they keep using mobile phones for so long, they actually use mobile phones overnight, and they ask their children to not use mobile phones. How come you can expect your children to not use the mobile phones while you are using the mobile phones? If you are watching TV over the whole night and you want your children to not watch TV a whole night, it's not possible. If you are telling lies in front of your children and you expect them to tell always the truth, it's just a false wish. And similarly, like, if you are doing some bad things in front of your children and you expect them to do the good things in return, that is what something is not possible. So CEOs and the leaders basically, like, lead them by examples. If you are like, if you, first of all, you will have to stop yourself from doing something bad if you really want your children or your family to follow you. And similarly, direct forms of leadership involve attempts to influence followers when interacting with them. or using communication media to send messages to them. So indirect leadership has been used to describe how a chief executive can influence people at lower levels. Lower levels means the people he is not interacting with. These people can always be influenced by the way he manages the people, and he does the things, and what kind of person he is. Now, if you compare the leaders and managers, the leaders and managers are not two mutually exclusive things. A good manager is a good leader, and a good leader is also a good manager. A person can be a leader without being a manager, and a manager can be a person without leading. Like, say, for example, an accounts manager. Accounts manager is a manager who manages accounts. He doesn't lead anybody. But like, say, for example, the departmental managers, or different kinds of regional managers, or other kind of managers, they basically not only manage things, but they also lead their teams. So some of the managers can have got the tasks which does not require the leadership qualities, and some of the managers task requires the qualities of being leaders. So there are a person can be a leader without being a manager, and a manager can be a person. Generally, uh, when a person is a leader, he's also a manager, kind of a thing. Like it's just like the two things always go together. But a manager can be a person without the leadership roles, like, say, for example, the accounts manager. So what managers do? The managers value stability. They value order. They value efficiency, and they are impersonal, risk averse, and focused on short-term results. Leaders, on the other hand, do not look in the shorter runs always. They value flexibility, they value innovation, they value change, and they value adaptations. They care about people as well as economic outcomes, and they have longer term perspectives regarding objectives and strategies. So the managers think short term, the leaders think about the longer run. Managers think about order and efficiency. The leaders think about flexibility, innovation, and adaptability. Adaptability means the managers, bring change to the organizations. They adapt change. Whatever is happening in the world can be adapted by you, but this adaptation requires a great kind of a leadership, or the great kind of a leader that you have. Uh, So the leaders are the people who bring change to the organizations. And on the bigger levels, the leaders bring change into the nations. And even bigger level, as I was talking to you about Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he brought change for the whole universe. He was sent for the whole universe. He was the messenger for all the people who actually will come now and will live the like all the 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 people who would live up till the Qiyamah. Yes, very good. This Maria Qureshi says good leaders lead the people from above them, and a good great leader leads the people from within them. All right. It's a good thing, basically, because it's what basically, you have to, bring. There are potentials in every nation. There are potentials in every people. There are potential in everybody. You need to bring them out, and the managers can do that. The good leaders can do that, and the good leaders can bring good out of the people. Right? That's what is important. Rost 1991 is a paper cited here. He defined management as an authority and as an authority relationship that exists between a manager and subordinates to produce and sell goods and services. He defined leadership as it's very important. It's a good definition. That's why it has been taken here. He defined leadership as a multi-directional influence relationship between a leader and followers with the mutual purpose of accomplishing real change. The leadership is a multi-directional influence relationship between a leader and followers with the mutual purpose of accomplishing real change. So it's very important. Now, if you look at the traits, trait, when you define a trait, if the meaning of the trait is a distinguishing characteristic of or a quality of a person. Now we are looking at different kinds of traits, the distinguishing characteristics of managers, and we are looking at the skills. The traits are there in your body, like, they are born with you. And some of the traits can be created as well, but the skills are learned over the time. The skills basically are a different thing from the traits. Trait, it refers to a variety of individual attributes, including aspects of personality, temperament, needs, motives, and values. When you talk about traits, the traits refer to the variety of individual attributes. What are the different aspects of your personality? What is your temperament? The temperament basically explains what kind of person you are. If you are a loose-tempered person, you can be a loose-tempered person, you can be a very calm, you can actually have got a good tempered, and these temperaments are basically the traits. They are the distinguishing characteristics or the quality of your personality. What kind of needs do you have got? What kind of motives you have got in your life? And what kind of values you have got. Like, there are so many people who are big but they don't have got any values. The value means, like, the value to the culture, the value of the religion, the value of the society, the value of the person, the value of the places. Everything has got its own value. Like, say for example, if you are living in Pakistan, there are certain values that you basically should have. And similarly, if you think yourself Muslim, Muslims basically should have got certain values, and these values are like, if you follow those values, that is basically a very distinguishing quality that you have. The people basically who follow those values and the people who have got the care of these values, they are the basically big people. And that basically comes sometimes by nature, like you cannot uh, create these traits amongst the people easily. Like, they cannot be created very easily. The skills can be inculcated, the skills can be like, taught to the people, the skills can be learned as an individual, but traits are your parts of your personality. So personality traits are relatively stable dispositions to behave in a particular way. Examples include self-confidence. Self-confidence is a trait. Extroversion, like, when you are looking outside of the things, you are not introvert, you are just looking at, you are learning from the other worlds, and you are basically having an ability to learn and, like, get ideas from other people. Emotional maturity, how mature you are. Like, say for example, this is something generally we lack in generally in the society, that the people are not emotionally mature. They behave very, like, immaturely. They like, sometimes react, they don't act. Like, it's a very important thing. We should all people learn to act, not react. Reaction in the sense, like, if I do good with you, you also, like, uh, revert with a good. You have to have a kind of ability to act. You should not always react. Like, say for example, अगर मैं आपके साथ अच्छा हूं तो आप भी अच्छे हैं, इसमें कोई कमाल नहीं है. मैं आपके साथ बुरा हूं तो आप मेरे साथ बुरे हो जाएंगे, इसमें भी कोई कमाल नहीं है. अगर मैं आपके साथ बुरा हूं और आप मेरे साथ अच्छे हों, इस तरह, again, if I give you the example of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like, a lady who used to throw garbage on him, when she got actually ill, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to just see her, that if she was doing all right. This is act. It is not a reaction. Like, say for example, a person if throws garbage on you, will you go and, like, do hospitality, or like something, like, you will just ask, like, if or you will just go and visit him if he or she is ill, I'm sorry. So it's just not possible for us. We are not these kind of beings. We react, we don't act. So the leaders act, the leaders don't react. The reactions are really bad. Reactions, we do all the things like in our lives as a reactions, and that is the thing that basically we need to learn over time, that we should not be doing things in reactions. So Zaryab Shah has written in the chat, managers are playing the role of leaders in their respective departments or positions, and understanding of employee behavior and motivation as well as an appreciation. इतना टाइम आप लिखने में लगा रहे हैं, थोड़ा सा सुने भी. So we are actually, the leaders basically have their ability, they basically act. They have got values. They give values to the values. So this is yeah, you can do it. If you act, you can bring change. If you react, you cannot bring change, because when you react, you always just further some kind of particular action. Like, say for example, if somebody is doing bad with you and you are also doing bad with him or her, you cannot end this bad behavior of that person by doing this. You can end this bad behavior by just doing good with that person. So there are some kind of a problem, these are the traits in a person's that should have. Trait approach is one of the earliest approaches to studying the leadership. Underlying assumptions are some people have skills and traits that make them more likely to attain positions of leadership. These are your traits. These are your inherent qualities, your characteristics in your body, in your character, which make you leader. A leader is self-confident. A leader does not react. A leader gives, just take care of values. A leader has got an ability to influence other people. So traits and skills that contribute to managerial effectiveness and advancement, and these all traits and skills, the good traits and good skills, can always make you successful. So your effectiveness and your advancement in your life depend on that how skilled and how what kind of traits you have got. So if you compare the traits with the skills, the trait is the personality. Your personality actually is your trait, and the skill can be learned, which can be a technical skill. Traits, skills, and personality, but losing in population. Many are called, but few are chosen. हिमारी आप एक्सप्लेन करेंगे इस बात को? Okay, she is not responding. So traits can be relative to the personality, temperament, needs, motives in your lives, and the values. Whereas a skill is an ability to do something in an effective way, which can be technical, your technical skills, your interpersonal skills. Some of the people are good in interacting with other people. They make friends easily. They always take care of others. They always stand with you in your bad times, and they also enjoy good times with you. So they have got a lot of interpersonal skills, conceptual skills. Like some people are conceptually very good. They have got a very good clear concepts, and they basically have got an ability to a need or motive, a desire for types of stimuli or experiences. You have got psychological needs. You have got hunger, thirst, social motives. You have got always motives. The social motives may be related to the achievements in your life, your esteem, your self-respect, your power, and your independence. They are all social motives. You want to have achievements in your life. You want to satisfy your self-esteem. You want to gain powers, and you also want to be independent. All right, values. What are the values? Values play a very, very important role. And what these all developed countries have been able to do over the time is they have created values. The other day, it was being shown on the TV that since Russia has attacked Ukraine, there were so many Ukrainian people who wanted to leave the Ukraine, and there were two roads near the border. एक रोड आने वाला था और एक रोड बॉर्डर की तरफ, बॉर्डर से एक अंदर अंदर जाने वाला था और एक बॉर्डर की तरफ आने वाला रोड था. The whole traffic was on the road that was going out of the border. उसके साथ वाला जो रोड था जहां से दूसरी साइड का रोड है जिसके अंदर से जाहिर के लोग बॉर्डर से जब आते हैं अंदर यूक्रेन में तो फिर एंटर होते हैं, दे बेसिकली गो टू द यूक्रेन. आई वाज वाचिंग दैट सीन कि they were so desperate, they wanted to leave their country because of the attacks that were happening by the other country, Russia. But nobody actually tried to use the other road to leave the borders. Every car was like, there on the one side of the road. यहाँ पर अगर आप देखें तो अगर एक रोड पे अगर ब्लॉकेड हो तो क्या होता है? अगर एक रोड बंद हो यानी उस पर ट्रैफिक ज्यादा हो, जैम हो, तो फिर क्या होता है? Problem with us is we have not been able to create those values. These values, even we use the footpaths, even we use like, all the kind of ways, and like, the things get so messy, and like, the people don't have got patience because we don't have values. We don't value the others, like, we don't respect the others. We don't respect, like, say, for example, if you are driving a car and you are not driving it safely and you are not basically taking care of others, this is a sin. Like if you say, for example, take, or you basically do not let other people use his or her right of going, say, for example, you commit a sin. But who actually thinks it as a sin? These are the values that we have to learn over time, like the value of speaking truth, the value of performing duties, the value of doing this, and the value of doing that. So the values are the internalized attitudes about what is right and wrong. The values basically tell you that what is right and what is wrong, what is ethical and what is unethical. We don't have got values, like very much like, we should not talk bad about ourselves basically, but the thing is, like we have lost those values. How much value we give to the truth, how much value we give to the honesty, how much value we give to the discipline, how much value we give to the, आप देखें ना, that is what something, देखें ना, आपको कहा है अल्लामा इकबाल ने कि सबक पे पर सदाकत का, शुजाअत का, अमानत का लिया जाएगा तो उससे काम दुनिया की इमामत का. That is something, they are the values that you have to follow. If you really want to lead the world, you will have to have got these kind of values. So these values influence your preferences, what kind of things you want to do and what kind of things you don't want to do, and perception of problems. How do you perceive problems? What kind of things you do when you basically have problems, and choice of behavior. What choice you make as far as your behaviors are concerned. Whenever you have values like, you choose the better way. You choose such way which is more respectable, which is better, and which is basically, like say, for example, the values include fairness in the society, justice, honesty. Like if you go to the police station and you want this police station to register a complaint from you, you will not be able to register your complaint. You will not be getting justice. If you go to the courts, you will not be able to get the justice. If you like apply for the jobs, you cannot expect fairness. If you apply, or if you just like, do for some, if you do anything, you cannot expect a fair treatment from the people, from the organizations, from the institutions, from the government, from everybody. Like you basically will have a very severe problem, and that is what basically create values. And these values we have lost somewhere in our kind of like, greed, or kind of corruption, or kind of like, cruelty, which we call, like there's so much injustice everywhere. Traits are influenced by both of the following: learning and inherited capacity. inherited capacity, like we inherit, like say for example the people actually inherit uh, like quite a lot of traits that you inherit, like say for example what inheritance we are leaving for our children, what kind of Pakistan we are going to live, or we are going to leave for the children, what kind of behaviors we are showing them, how are they going to learn about it. So this is what something is inherited capacity, what kind of inheritance you have got from the previous generations, and the skills determined jointly by learning and heredity. Heredity means you basically have got say for example आपका जो एक कारपेंटर का बेटा है, he may be a good carpenter, a plumber's son might be a good plumber, or similarly a scientist's son can be a good scientist, an economist's son can be a good economist, like kind of a thing. So the skills basically you learn over the time from the environment, from the people basically who are there. So if you look at the skill taxonomy, by the taxonomy we mean the science of technique of classification. If we classify the skills, there are different kinds of skills. Like say for example, the first classification is about technical skills. The most important skills that you should have, technical skills. They are primarily connected with the things like, say, for example, the knowledge about methods. Your technical skills will be good if you have got good knowledge about the methods or processes or procedures. If you know the procedures, if you know the methods, so you are technically sound, you have got technical skills. And you also have got an ability to use tools and equipments. So that is the technical skill that you have. And this technical skill is one of the kind of skills that you can divide skills into. Another skill is your interpersonal skills, how social you are, how skilled you are in winning the hearts of the people. So that is a possible thing if you have a knowledge about the human behavior and interpersonal processes, understand feelings, attitudes, motives of other people, communicating clearly and effectively if you have got this ability, and establishing cooperative relationships. Cooperative relationships means you scratch my back, I scratch your back. It's a kind of a thing we can actually always help each other. And this is what something is important in our lives, that we should be able to help each other in all the ways. Another kind of a skill you can divide the skills into is the conceptual skill. This is primarily concerned with ideas and concepts. How much ability do you have got to create this kind of ideas. Okay, so the possible fourth skill could be administrative skill, your ability to perform managerial activities, like say for example what kind of a planner you are, what kind of a negotiator you are, and what kind of a coach you are. So your ability to plan, your ability to negotiate, and ability to lead or coach people, that basically is a kind of administrative skill. And administrative skill involve a combination of technical, cognitive, like you just try to find out, and interpersonal skills.